This video is about how to deal with the extra line spacing that happens in Microsoft Word. All right, so I'll use the example of the business letter that we do in class. So as you're typing your name, and then you hit enter, you discover that you've got more than just a single line between them. And as you continue typing, you're going to discover that it's a lot more space than you actually want. So the way you would deal with that is you can either just delete everything and start from scratch. Just go back up to that very top line so that this is the first line of the cursor. And you might think that, okay, hit single spacing, and then I'll just start again. But then you realize that it's still doing that sort of double spacing thing. You're like, well, I don't understand because I already have it at single spacing, so why is this being strange? Now, there's another place that you need to look, and there are two different ways to get in there. One of them is from this line spacing options. Click on that, and up comes this window. This is in the paragraph section of the ribbon. These are actually called ribbons in Microsoft. And if you click on this little downward facing arrow, same window comes up. Now, the problem and where this little extra line spacing is coming from is right here. What this is saying is that when you hit enter, it's going to add an extra 8 points in between every single line. So you can either just highlight that, hit 0, put the space between there, and then say OK, or you can just hit these down arrows, drop it to 0. And you want to make sure that both this before and after are set to 0. The only difference between before and after is simply this says before the paragraph, it's going to put in the 8 points. This says if you hit enter after the paragraph, it's going to enter the 8 points. I want to show you exactly what this means. I'm not going to read everything here, but if you decide to pause the video and read everything I have written here, it actually explains everything I'm talking about. This is the effect of having 8 after. So your paragraph, as you just keep typing and it wraps to the next line, this is going to be single spaced. But as soon as you hit enter, this is where that 8 point after the paragraph kicks in. And then you start typing, and if you keep typing, then it's going to wrap again, keeping that single spacing. And as soon as you hit enter, it's going to add the extra 8 points again. I'm not going to get too much into it, but there's a way around it. These lines, even though everything on this entire document has the 8 points after setting, there is a way to eliminate that extra spacing. So if you want to, you can go ahead and read this. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but go ahead and just pause and you can read about it. But that's what the 8 point after means, is after the paragraph, not in the middle of the paragraph. That is your single spacing. It's after each paragraph every time you hit enter on the keyboard. And that's why when you're typing those address blocks and the date, because you use enter to change every line, that's why it's adding space after every single line. So you can have both of those as 0. This is indentation, that's a different issue, but this is where, if you're having those extra spaces over here, you need to come look. Single is good. This is also 1.5, so you can have a little bit less than double spacing, but still have some spacing. These numbers are not exactly the same as, let me say OK, and we'll now have our single spacing. These numbers are not quite the same as what you'll see up here. Now there's the 1.5, but from this button you also have a 1.15, which is mostly single spacing, but adds just that little tiny bit extra. Both of these are completely fine. If you're writing a document and you want to get everything on one page and it's starting to go over, make sure you're on 1.0. If you have a really short letter and you'd like it to look a little bit longer, then the 1.15 is the way to go. It's entirely up to you. But anyway, so you might notice that even though I have made this zeros and we have single spacing, so then why is there still a space in between here and here? Well, the reason is because I didn't make those changes when I was up at the top with everything selected. So let me show you the difference. So I've already typed all of this. This has that 0.8 spacing. You can see that by just looking right there. To change it, so if I make that change right here, then everything from that point forward will have the change, but everything I've already done will not. So the way to make the change for everything is to left click and drag to highlight everything that's been typed so far. And then you come up here, you knock your 0.8 or your 8 point down to 0, say OK. Now it's got that. We're going to take a look at the line spacing. It's currently at 1.15 on this document. I'm going to go ahead and knock it to 0. Now everything I type will go down to one line instead of giving that extra space between every line. So that's the way to change your spacing in Word. And it is a default that you will have a little extra space down here with every new document you do. So if you want to have that single spacing, then you will want to come here at the very beginning of your document and change this after to 0, say OK, and then as you start writing your document, everything will be fine.